Okay, let's get into the climbing on the Ibis Ripmo V3. First off, I'd say the bike climbs just as good or better than the previous version of the Ripmo. I was on the Ripmo AF on that previous version. Had a little bit shorter chainstays because Ibis now adjusts that chainstay size as the sizes go up or down. And I think having that little bit longer chainstay just helps the bike feel a little more stable, a little more balanced as you're going up some of the steeper stuff. I would say that helps, keep that front end down a little bit, gives you some more length and stability out back. The bike still has a lot of pep when you're climbing. For a 150 mil travel bike, definitely climbs really good. It's got the DW link that Ibis is known for, and just overall climbing is awesome. Through some of the steeper, kind of looser, steeper stuff, I would like to see the seat angle just a little bit steeper, maybe by a degree. I don't feel the front end coming up at all or anything like that on some of the steeper stuff, but I think I will end up, moving my seat forward just a bit, giving it a little bit of a steeper seat angle there. But overall, everything's really good. On flatter stuff, I don't notice any, numbness in my hands or anything like that. I don't notice that the seat angle's too steep to where my hands are pushing down into the handlebars and feel like I'm going, too far forward or have my weight too far into the bike. Through like technical kind of chunky stuff up over like square edge little roots and rocks and things like that, the bike has a lot of traction. It does really well just keeping that suspension active with that DW link. It really does climb good through the rocky technical stuff. In fact, I never want to lock out my shock at all on that rear shock. I never lock that out when I'm climbing on the Ripmo, just because it's so good as far as traction goes. It gives you so much traction and stays really active. So I just really never feel the need to lock out that rear shock, just because it is so efficient, and that rear suspension stays really active as I'm going through like really rocky or rooty sections, and I need to have traction to get up through stuff. One thing I noticed on this bike is it's quite a bit lighter, I feel like, than my Ripmo AF. Obviously the Ripmo AF was aluminum, but I also had an Assegai front and rear tire, which slowed this bike down like crazy. This one does a lot better, and I think it's going to even do better here in the future. I'm going to be putting a Forge and Bond carbon wheel set on, and I think that's going to help out quite a bit with climbing, taking some weight down, as well as just like acceleration, standing when you want to really just mash and stand and sprint a little bit, which I don't do a ton of anyway. I'm just kind of a slow, easygoing climber. But yeah, overall, this bike is great. All right, so getting into the downhill stuff. How does the Ripmo V3 perform going downhill? Because that's what we're here for. I don't think a lot of us are buying a Ripmo to be the best climber and to win a trophy for going uphill. So yeah, let's talk about how this thing rides going down. It's still a Ripmo. This V3 is still definitely a super playful bike. It's super fun. It doesn't feel overbiked when you're on blues and greens. It's still a lot of fun on those type of trails for sure. Where I noticed the biggest difference of the V3 Ripmo versus the previous version is the rear end just feels so much more plush and damp and controlled. It feels a lot deeper than that 150 mil travel range for sure. It just feels like it has a lot more
progressivity in that last maybe 15%, maybe 20% of the travel, where the old version of the Ripmo felt like it got overwhelmed on bigger hits and consecutive bumps, even like 6-inch to 8-inch rocks or roots or bumps like that. It felt like it really just got overwhelmed and hung up, and the rear end, it was a super fun bike. It was very, very playful, very sporty, had a lot of pop, and bottom out resistance and things like that. But this new one just feels so much better and more controlled for sure. Like as you're going through fast, chunky, rooty stuff, this one's smoothing out a lot of those bigger hits just a lot better and in a lot more controlled way for sure. I would say it's a more balanced bike too. So like I think it's that little bit longer chainstay on the size that I'm riding again. So I'm gonna size large, by the way, on this new version of the Ripmo. The sizing's a little bit different. They had that extra medium size in there, and then they go large and then extra large. I have heard another reviewer say that they felt like the large compared to the old extra large is a lot smaller, when if you look at it on paper it's almost identical, and I honestly feel like out on the trail it's really similar, super familiar feeling, just as the old one was. So I rode an XL in the previous version on my Ripmo AF, and then I'm riding the large, like I said, on this one. But I feel like the size is great. I still feel like it's pretty sporty, maybe not as flickable or playful, getting through like tight, fast corners as the old one was. I wouldn't say it's not good at that, but it's a little longer. It's just a more balanced bike. It's a little more planted than the older one for sure. And I think like just high speed overall, like steeper, gnarlier stuff, it handles a lot better than the previous Ripmo did. And that's like the biggest change that I've noticed overall. Everything else feels pretty similar. Bike feels kind of the same in a lot of other areas. Like I said, the green blue trail's still super fun. The bike's still fast. It's still playful. It's just better overall in the bigger stuff. That rear end just got a whole lot more capable on this new V3. And so if you're looking for something that's like still climbs well, like still really good on the uphill, still playful, still a bike that you can take to pretty much any trail and not feel like it's too much bike, but you still definitely want something that's capable at like a bike park, or like blacks with chunky roots and rocks and drops and stuff like that, some jumps. This is a really good bike. It's super good choice for doing all kinds of stuff like that. Overall I would say this bike's just better than the older version. I like it a lot. I'm going to be doing some more testing with this bike, definitely getting some more riding time in on it. And then I'm going to be throwing on a pair of carbon wheels from Forge and Bond and just see kind of what happens with this bike. I really like the Ibis wheels that come on the Ripmo stock. Super good wheels. I like how they track. They feel really good. But I think lightening up the bike a little bit with that rotational mass and taking some weight off of there might really help make this bike come alive a little bit. And I've had those Forge and Bond wheels on a Console Meta that I had, that I built up, and they were really, really good on that bike. Just a very fast accelerating, very damp feeling wheel, but it holds a line super well. They do a really good job. So looking forward to getting those Forge and Bond wheels on there, and yeah, hopefully get some more video of what's going on with this bike. I've also got a couple things planned. I want to turn this bike into a Ripley and ride it like a Ripley for a little bit. Yeah, so I'm gonna have to get the clevis for the Ripley, change that clevis out, and then I'm gonna get the Fox 36 SL 140 mil travel on the fork, and then I've got to change out that rear shock. I've got to find a 210 by 52.5, I believe, for the rear shock, and then switch that out. So just change out those 3 little bits, and then I've got a Ripley. I might do a little bit lower rise bar. Right now I've got a 38 mil rise bar on the Ripmo, and I like that extra stack riding the Ripmo like that. So yeah, we'll see how that goes.